Welcome to another episode of Buyside Hippies. And today we are privileged to have with us Aditya Kaji, a Harvard Business School alum who is redefining a healthy snacking experience with his Y Combinator backed venture, Taali Foods. So I'll hand it over to you, Aditya. Can you please tell me how did you come up with Taali Food? What is the motivation idea behind it?
The vision was to launch an alternative snacking ingredient in the US. So Ati and I, we were, we were married founders at Tali, and throughout our time in the US, we both spent in excess of 8 or 10 years in the US, and we found snacking really a wash made with ingredients like potato, corn, and wheat, very processed, really not very good for you, high in carbohydrates, high in salts. And so we said, why not look towards the East and try launching snacks that we're familiar with in India, considerably healthier. And really the first product that we thought would fit in really well into that would be makhana. We call it water lily pops. It's essentially the seeds of the water lily plant that we pop, roast, and season. We launched early in, or rather mid of 2018 online, and we launched in stores early in 2019 while we were at Y Combinator. And I think makhana really offers itself. It has the ability to take on seasoning very well and take on flavors, and so that's the reason for that product specifically.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, especially makhana. I think one of the I think home like one of the most loved I think snacking at least in India. But great, you started something very interesting and brought that flavor to US as well. So Aditya, like I know that consumer business is really fiercely competitive. And but you took the plunge in 2017 after your MBA, and but I also know that this is one of the sectors which is like especially the superfood market segment, which is growing at a 10% rate in a $24 billion market size. So I just wanted to understand, what does it take to scale a consumer business, from absolutely nothing with no branding to like you now being in 600 stores. So can you please guide me through your journey? How was it for you?
Absolutely. Look, I'm by no means, I wouldn't call myself uber successful or someone that's really proven scale, right? 600 stores is really 10% of where we'd like to be, where we'd like to be 1,000, 10,000 stores. But what I can tell you is that both Aki and I had a little bit of a retail background, right? We both worked in retail. I worked in consumer. I advised some of the largest CPG brands in the world while I was at Booz Company in the US. So a little bit of that helps. We spoke to a lot of customers. And right at the time that we were launching, and I'd say it's still very true, alternative ingredients is they're booming in the US, right? You have chickpea-based snacks coming out. You have kale chips. You have banana-based, plantain-based chips. Have have all these fantastic alternative ingredients. Vegan Robs is one such successful brand that has done it really well. They have these Brussels sprouts chips and cauliflower chips, and so we see this plant-based trend on a broader base, and we see consumers moving away from corn, potato, and wheat, as I was saying earlier. And so the vision really was to build this brand in this alternative snacking sort of aisle, quote unquote. So like Whole Foods calls the aisle functional snacking. We have, we're in a bunch of other retailers. Central Market calls it functional snacking. And so there's all these retailers that are looking for new brands, and consumers looking for snacks that have the sort of soft puff kind of texture without the same processing or without the same sort of unhealthy element to it.
Okay. Right. Right.
And the
Interesting.
name,
Yeah.
go back to your question. The name Tali was something that came up on one of our very early expos. This is well before we had a company. We decided we want to do something in the CPG space, and we said we can call the brand. And the whole vision was to call it, to have the word L in it. And we wanted something true to our roots in India, and the seed is obviously Indian. And we said, L has a nice ring to it. Some of the largest CPG brands in the world have L, Lay's, Apple, Frito-Lay, McDonald's. And so we'd done a bit of reading and research. And so L had a nice sort of recollection. And so, Tali, which essentially means high five, is fun, and sort of that's the kind of snacking flavor we want to have, right? Like snacks can be healthy and delicious, and so this is really a celebration of exactly that.
Nice. Like, I always wondered, okay, why is it called Taali Foods? But thanks for like, just letting me know. So Aditya, thanks for answering that. I just want to now understand, I know your journey's been really amazing. You were like a consultant with Booz, strategy and did some interesting projects with Reliance Jio. So can you please tell me what skill sets, you actually gained in your previous jobs, which helps you today as a founder?
Sure. So, I'd say both, right? So, Booz and Company, I was in the consumer packaged goods practice for a very, very long time. And I advised, like I said earlier, one of the largest CPG companies in the world. So, we as consultants, you travel to the client side and you really interact with people that are doing this day in and day out, whether it's, working with the product team or working with the promotions team, working with the finance team. So, I've done all of that for some of these large brands in the US. That was phenomenal learning, right? It just gives you this sort of bird's eye perspective into how a CPG company works, how it breathes, how they think about branding, how they think about consumers, which are really the center of your business. Geo, on the other hand, was really an extraordinary experience working with some of the smartest people in the world, launching what can only be termed as the single most, the most ambitious project we've seen undertaken in India. And it's a matter of great pride that I take that I was part of the team that set up this phenomenal network in India, taking India to the next stage of the internet revolution. I remember 2013 or 2012 when Eric Schmidt, former chairman of Google, visited India. He said, India's at risk of missing the internet revolution. And I remember the chairman of Reliance back then saying that, we're going to do this. And I think since then, I think he's delivered on his promise almost 10 times over. And I was part of the team that really focused on how do we make consumers' life easier, right? When Jio was just launching, an eKYC or an online customer acquisition in the telecom space was very, very easy. It wasn't something that had been done before. And so just thinking through the entire customer journey, how do we, make the product so customer centric that customers don't need to think more than, a few seconds. Yeah, Geo's the one. So easy to add data, so easy to add plans, and just make it very simple and robust. And so at Geo, the best training you can get as an entrepreneur in waiting is the way I like to call it, is how to execute no matter what, right? It's very daunting when you take on an entrepreneurial task like setting up a company, hiring vendors, getting a design, getting branding, getting packaging, getting a product, getting ingredients, raw material suppliers. But I think Reliance set me up very well for that, right? If Booz set up my thought process, Reliance set me up for this. And my wife, co-founder, was in BCG. So similar story there, right? She'd done a lot of retail work at BCG, worked with, again, some of the most successful retail brands. And then she worked with the Reliance brands in their Reliance brands team that essentially got brands from the US and launched them in India, like Diesel and Kenneth Cole and some of the very, very successful Western brands. So she really got this very, very fantastic purview into how retail works.
Wow. Especially with your background at Booz, you also did a lot of like FMCG consumer projects, and with also your co-founder, as you mentioned. So I think you were like a perfect team to like get into the consumer segment, especially niche.
But look, at the end
Yes,
of the day, this is right. I mean, you start a business because you're passionate about creating something.
right.
And I think everyone is passionate about something. So in some sense, almost everyone can be an entrepreneur in their own way. But it just so happens that CPG was calling us, and that's where we sort of take time.
Right. So I understand the thought process and how you the depth of understanding consumer business came from your projects at consulting, and especially the execution part came from, as you mentioned, from your projects at Reliance, which was very dynamic, and how you guys executed, and India is benefiting from it. Is great. So Aditya, here I interact with a lot of entrepreneurs to understand what is the secret to their success, and I want to understand from you what is the secret to success in entrepreneurship according to you. Is there a recipe for it?
Look, I think there's two recipes, right? I think when you're building something, you need to be very passionate. Right? So that's no secret there. You need to be damn passionate about what you're doing because you're going to live and breathe this. And this is something, one of the Nika founders told me while she was building her business. And so I completely agree, because you're living and breathing this. There are days when you hate what you're doing, but you got to still do it because you got to pay salaries, you got to pay your vendors, people counting on you. So I think the passion is unequivocal. There's nothing that's more important. And it only comes when you really are damn sure that this is what you're doing. But I think the second, and maybe this is a little bit more important, it's the support system you build around your business. Whether it's family, it could be your mom, it could be your best friend, it could be your sister, it could be your in-laws. It doesn't matter. You need to be sure that you're creating this very healthy atmosphere of people that are batting for you. Right introductions. It doesn't have to be people who are overly connected, but just people who are willing to bounce ideas off you. And so my advice to anyone that asks me, it's not, again, by no means, I hate preaching, but this is by no means the advice from jobs or whatever, but create the support system of people that are, contributing to the success of your business and you as the individual. Because till you have that support system, starting a business is damn tough, and making a business successful is even tougher. Right? I can say I've started a business. I can't say I've created a successful business yet, but we're still very small. And so I think you want to make sure that you have the right people around you, who are thinking with you, or whether it's your classmates, your friends, it doesn't matter. Build that support network, because without them, it's impossible.
Right, right. Thank you for sharing this insight, Aditya. And like, unfortunately, we are staying in a time in the times right now, because of COVID-19, and especially your startup being a consumer startup. So now I want to understand. I've seen a lot of startups. A lot of these big startups have changed their strategy, have gone online, have changed their business models. So how did you react to the change of of COVID-induced pandemic? How what are you doing at Taali at this point of time?
So we're doing exactly what you said. You described it exactly well, right? So I think this time last year, before the pandemic was in full flow, I'd say about 70% of our business was offline in physical stores, and 30% of it was online. I think it's exactly the opposite now. I think about 70% of it is online and 30% of it is
Wow.
offline. So the online has grown and the offline has shrunk, and we're putting in our dollars to work in that sort of direction. We're focusing on online, focusing on more profitability, hoarding cash, not hoarding cash, but basically making sure we're not burning as much cash as we used to, being more disciplined with the way we and so, look, a lot of the things that you said they're all true. Right? We've got to focus on the new way of life for everyone. Travel is reduced tremendously. People are going into grocery stores less frequently. People are ordering online more, and so we're sort of, you know, in many ways, we had already set up the infrastructure, and so for us, it was just to double down on that. So in some ways, yes, it was reactionary, but I think we were well set up to, even be preemptive in some sense.
Right, right. Um, Great insights, Aditya, and especially how you pivoted to like your business model to like to to your change in the times right now. Unfortunately, because of COVID, that's great to know, Aditya. Now I want to take you into the next segment of your journey in Harvard Business School, which is I think one of the dreams of like so many Indians to be there, and you've gone there, experienced the had that amazing experience. So no, I just want to understand in India, a lot of us want to head to business schools, like top B schools like IIMs or ISBs to get a well-paying job. And you went to Harvard Business School, and you interned in Apollo Global, which is one of the biggest private equity firms. You had some great exposure in consulting. But what made you think differently? Why didn't you take up a job, and why did you head to entrepreneurship route?
So what Aarti and I discussed was that life's too short. You want to start doing something that you're really passionate about. Sure, I mean, you know what? If you ask me honestly, I think I'm making less money than many of my peers in finance are. But we're building something, right? We're building something hopefully that is going to outlive us. Build a brand. We're building something that's going to hopefully outlive you. That's the hope, and that's my sort of compensation, right? I may not be drawing a salary like I would have if I was working in finance in a bank or an investing firm. But I'm certainly, creating equity, creating value, and I'm at the end of the day, like taking a healthy food from India to the US, I think at the end of the day, look, I the biggest sort of reward there is to see my food, my product on the shelves of a store, having consumers buy it. I just the other day, we get these emails all the time, but I got this email a couple of days back from a customer saying, "Thank you so much for your product. Like my kid can't eat corn-based so popcorn, and started buying Taali in large quantities because she can like other. So this kid can now take her product to school or wherever she studies right now and snack just like the other kids can. And so it's stuff like that just interact with the consumers that is so massively rewarding. And so no regrets, and we really enjoy what we're doing. We enjoy going to work every day, building new products, researching new products, thinking of new stores that we can get into. So we're really enjoying the journey. I think it's the journey that matters for us, at least right now. Than just as you said, why don't just get a job? You'd probably make money. You're probably right. We probably would make more money.
Right, right. So, Aditya, thanks for this. So, I just want to now understand, how it is defined by a lot of like people. You read blogs. It's like the mecca of all business schools. So, what was Harvard like for you? And what differentiates a Harvard business school from other business schools? One of the best other top B schools, in your opinion.
I think it's the people, right? I think it's the people that you get to interact with there, and the sort of atmosphere of openness that the business school has created. And you get to interact with the entire year, some of the best faculty in the world. We have amazing guests that visit the school, talk to us about cases. But the one thing that I think differentiates us and from the other business schools is we're basically an entirely case method based taught sort of system. So everything is taught in the form of a case method. Basic finance, accounting, all of that taught in the form of a case, which is essentially like a story written on a real company. In some cases fictional, but in most cases a real company or a real person or a real business facing decision making. And it's the concept that essentially pivots or creates the decision for that person. And so at the end of your time at Harvard Business School, I don't remember the exact number, but it's in excess of 300-400 cases that every single student has studied. So you now studied 300 or 400 businesses or 300 or 400 people. And really what differentiates us, again, if you think about that and take that one step forward, is we're a school that teaches business history. I think one of the best ways to study in general is to study history. We've studied business history in excruciating detail, with multiple sort of decision-making theories that we create over the past over 2 years. There's multiple classes. You can pick your classes in your second year. First year, there's a required curriculum. So the entire year is studying the same cases. And if you go down in history the last 15, 20 years, you're going to have many, many cases that you studied that, some of the most successful Harvard Business School alumni would have studied with you. And so there's always that conversation point with a former alumnus. You remember doing this case while you were in class. And the case-based method is very discussion-oriented. The whole class is brought into the discussion.
Wow.
The professor is literally a moderator, not even a professor. Right? The professor just navigates discussion into ways and means he'd like to, points he'd like to cover. But really, it's your class that teaches you. It's your peer that teaches you. It's your seatmate that teaches you, or it's a form of private equity champion that brings in the school finance concept, right? Or it's a Navy SEAL that's teaching you something about leadership that you wouldn't have heard from the best professor in the world, right? So in that sense, it's very collaborative, and they teach you that collaboration. I think going back to what I said earlier, right, the entrepreneurship piece, where you got to make sure your support system and the people around you are great. And this is really case in point, where every single person in your section is contributing to your knowledge.
Interesting, really, really cool insight you just brought out about how people help you grow, and the support system you build around yourself eventually helps you, and it's helping you today as a founder as well, as you mentioned. So on this point, Aditya, I just want to understand the support system which you have around you. So who are the people who come to HBS? What kind of people get admitted to HBS? What kind of experiences do they have before they go for their MBA? If you can just throw some light on that.
It's very hard to answer the question. Look, I think they have people from all backgrounds, all backgrounds. There's no background that I think is left uncovered. I think that's in everyone's interest. There's people with 1 or 2 years of work experience. There's people with 7 or 8 years of work experience, 10 years of work experience. There's former Navy SEALs, as I said, former Army personnel. There's entrepreneurs there. There's engineers. There's doctors trying to get a degree. There's law
Wow.
school students. Um, there's history majors, English majors. There's a teacher that is now founder of this drink business. And so there's like all these people with very, very varied backgrounds. So there's consultants, obviously, there's bankers that are looking to study management, right? Looking to study how do you, how do you manage people, dip their hands in finance, marketing. So you get a little bit of everything. So it's very hard to describe the kind of background. What I can say is that in terms of what is the one string that holds everyone together is that they all want to learn, get an MBA, right, and collaborate and interact.
Got it. Got it. And I'm sure, when the admission officer sees, these are the kind of people who really want to learn and want to make the best of it. I'm sure those are the kind of people who get admitted, especially from different kinds of background, adding something unique to the class as well, as you mentioned. Uh,
No,
right. So, as you mentioned, a lot of people from different backgrounds come, they all want to learn management and probably have something in mind as to what they want to do. Now,
right.
does Harvard Business School prepare you to switch careers? For example, if you're a marketing guy and you want to become an investor in the next stage of your life, does it really prepare you, and how good is the program for that?
It's really up to you, right? Because as I said, the first year is a required curriculum. Every single person that goes to Harvard Business School takes the same class, study the same case. In your second year is when you get to take classes. So it's called the elective curriculum. In your second year, if you want to go into I don't know, CFO-based finance, there's multiple classes to do that. If you want to go into venture-based finance, multiple classes to do that. If you want to go into marketing, there's various ways to do that. If you want to go into consumer packaged goods, there's classes where that you can learn the management around that. You can also take classes at Harvard across schools, right? You can take a class at Harvard Kennedy or Harvard Law, and so they have that flexibility, which is great. I'm not going to say it's very common, but it happens. In negotiation classes, if you think you're going to be in settings that you need to negotiate in. But look, the point still stands is that it really is what you make out of it. I'm sure there's peers from school that wanted to maybe not focus on the classes as much at Harvard Business School, wanted to spend more time and taking Harvard Kennedy classes because they thought they're going to be government related jobs. And so there's that you have all of the flexibility. So it's really what you make of it.
Wow, amazing. That, like, just to like, I can only imagine, what it takes to, like, study public policy at Kennedy School, and then, while studying business at HBS and meeting such different people as well, from different walks of life, studying at very different schools and coming together, collaborating, to make your experience great. So this is my last question. Thank you so much for bearing with me on this. What is your opinion, on starting up? Do you subscribe to the idea of starting up before your MBA, or you're better suited to an entrepreneurship experience after MBA?
Hard question. Because I've done it after, and so I can advise on after. But I think there's a lot of people that have done it successfully before as well. Doing it before sort of gets you another opportunity to refresh. So I can see the upside there. So if let's say you're not successful and you want to take a break because starting up a business is exhausting, and go and get an MBA, that's an opportunity right there, right? So if you're working 15-hour days and starting up and your business is launched, the next step is you'd like to get an MBA and sort of restart because your business was not successful for any reason, or you sold your business and you get into a new line. MBA offers that opportunity. So I think that's one upside. If you decide to do it after, just like I have, you take all your learnings and your networks and sort of make sure that your business is very successful. And if it isn't, guess what? You have the opportunity to re-network out there and get a job if that's what you want to do. If you realize that starting up is not what you want to do, you can still do that after. So there's pros and cons. You've got to decide if you have the right idea. I don't think it matters if you have an MBA, you don't have an MBA, you've done it, you want to do it. Just do it. Just do the idea. Go launch, get your hands dirty. That's the best way to do it. I really don't think it matters which way the MBA falls before or after.
Great. Thank you so much, Aditya, for providing this insight and, for doing this podcast with us. Uh, And I think you've provided some really good insights, especially the one I really, liked was, how the support of like people, you need to have to actually, get you through the tough times, whether in business and life in general. So that's great, man. And I wish you all the luck with your venture, Taali Foods, and I hope you make it big. And hopefully the funding with M will be a billion very soon. So best of luck on that as well. Thanks again, man. Have a good day.